Hello and welcome. This is an Oasis&Brooks LTD training module. Today, we're going to build your Business Analyst toolkit from the ground up. We'll be walking through 6 essential techniques pulled right from the Babak guide that are going to give you the confidence to tackle pretty much any business problem that comes your way. So let's get right into it.
All right, picture this. You're staring down a brand new project. The stakeholders are all saying different things, the scope feels like it's changing every 5 minutes, and the pressure? Oh yeah, it's on. So how in the world do you cut through all that chaos and actually figure out what to do? Well, the secret isn't about just grinding it out. It's about having the right tools for the job. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. Build your professional toolkit. You know, a great business analyst is kind of like a master carpenter. They don't just have a hammer. They have a whole toolbox, and they know exactly which tool to grab for which task. That's how you get the job done right, and that's how you deliver real, tangible value to the business. So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll look at how to gather insights from stakeholders. Then we'll zoom out to analyze the big picture. After that, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of detailing user interactions and even mapping out complex behaviors. And finally, we'll put it all together so you know exactly which tool to choose and when. All right, let's start at the beginning. Before we can solve anything, we have to understand the people involved and the problem itself. So our first set of tools is all about discovery. This is what we call elicitation, which is really just a fancy word for getting information out of people's heads and making sure everyone's on the same page. Our first tool is the workshop, and I want to be super clear about this. A workshop is not just another meeting that could have been an email. No way. This is a focused, collaborative, and facilitated session. The goal isn't just to sit around and talk. It's to actively build consensus, create trust, and get a shared understanding of what really needs to be done. It's powerful stuff. So how do you run a good one? Well, it really boils down to 3 key stages. First, you've got to plan it out meticulously. That means a clear purpose, a solid agenda, and this is crucial, the right people in the room. Then during the workshop, your job is to facilitate, not to lecture. A little tip I love, use a parking lot. When a great but off-topic idea comes up, you just park it on a whiteboard to discuss later. It keeps things on track without making anyone feel ignored. And finally, you wrap it up. You send out clear notes, you follow up on action items, and you keep that momentum going. Okay, workshops are amazing, but what if you need to get feedback from, say, 500 people or 5,000? A workshop is just not going to work. That's where our next tool comes in handy, the good old survey or questionnaire. The real power here is scale. It's a structured, efficient way to collect a whole lot of information from a whole lot of people fast. Let's bring this to life with our case study, a fictional social media company called Connect Fear. Imagine they want to figure out what users really think about their newsfeed. A survey is perfect for this, right? They can reach thousands of users super quickly. But here's the trap you have to avoid: leading questions. You can't ask something like, "Don't you just love our new newsfeed?" because that's telling them the answer you want. You have to be neutral. Something like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the current newsfeed? That's how you get honest data. Okay, so we've gathered a bunch of information from people. Now what? Well, it's time to zoom out. We need to look at the big picture, the whole strategic landscape. And for that, we need some tools for analysis. And the go-to tool for this has got to be the SWOT analysis. It's a classic for a reason. It's so simple, but so powerful. It just gives you this great framework for looking at 2 things. First, the internal stuff you can control, your strengths and weaknesses. And second, the external stuff you can't control, the opportunities and threats that are out there in the world. So for our company, ConnectSphere, their SWOT might look something like this. A big strength is their brand recognition and huge user base. But a major weakness, their technology is getting old. Then you look outside. There's a huge opportunity to use new AI features, but there's also a big threat from newer, faster competitors. Now, the key to a good SWOT is brutal honesty, especially about your weaknesses. The moment you write them down, you can start planning how to fix them. And just like that, the path forward starts to look a whole lot clearer. All right, we've got our strategy sorted. Now it's time to zoom right back in. We're moving from the big why we're doing this to the nitty-gritty what and how of the solution itself. These next tools are all about defining the details from the user's point of view. If you've worked in an agile environment, you know this one. The user story is absolutely king. And the beauty of it is that it's not some huge, boring technical document. Nope,
It's just a simple, short sentence that describes a feature from the perspective of the person who's actually going to use it. The whole point is to keep the focus on the person and the value they're getting. The magic is all in that classic format. As a, I want to, so that. It's just brilliant. It forces you to think about three things. Who is this for? What do they want to do? And this is the most important part, why do they want to do it? That so that part, that's everything. That's the value. If you can't fill that in, you should probably ask if you should be building the feature at all. But, sometimes one little sentence just isn't enough. You need more detail. For those times, we have our next tool, the use case. A use case basically takes a user's goal and breaks down the entire step-by-step interaction between them and the system. The user, by the way, is often called an actor in use case lingo. And this is what it looks like visually. It's pretty straightforward. You've got your actor, that's the person outside the system. Then you have the system itself, which is just a big box. And inside that box are all the use cases, which are basically all the goals the actor can achieve. It's a really great way to get a bird's eye view of everything your system can do for its users. So the big question is, when do you use a user story and when do you use a use case? Well, think of it this way. User stories are your go-to for agile planning. They're short, they're focused on value, and they're perfect for breaking work into small pieces. Use cases are for when you need to get really detailed. They're more formal, and they're fantastic for mapping out every single step and even thinking about what happens when things go wrong. They leave no room for ambiguity. Okay, we've got one last tool to add to the kit today, and this one is a bit more specialized. This is the one you break out when you're dealing with something that has a really complex life of its own, with lots of different stages and rules. It's called state modeling. And the key difference here is that we're not focused on a user's interaction anymore. We're focused on one single entity inside the system. Think about something like a customer order, or a support ticket, or a user's blog post. We're going to map out every single possible status or state that thing can be in from the moment it's created until the moment it's archived. Let's go back to ConnectSphere. A user's post is a perfect example for a state model. It could start in a draft state, right? Then the user hits submit, that's an event, and the post transitions to a submitted for review state. Then a moderator approves it, another event, and it moves to published. See how that works? Each arrow is an event that triggers a change. This is an absolute lifesaver for making sure you don't miss any complex business rules. And there we are. We've gone from the 30,000-foot view of discovery all the way down to the nitty-gritty details of the solution. So let's step back and admire our complete, fully stocked Business Analysts toolkit. Think of this as your quick reference guide. When should you use what? If you need people to collaborate and agree on something, grab a workshop. Need to get opinions from tons of people fast? A survey is your friend. Trying to figure out your strategic position? That's a job for SWOT analysis. Defining small pieces of work for an agile team? User stories, all the way. Need to document every single interaction in detail? Pull out a use case. And if you're trying to map out the life of something complex, state modeling is what you need. And this really brings us to the single most important point of our entire session today. Look, anybody can learn the definition of a SWOT analysis. But real expertise, the thing that makes you an indispensable part of a team, is knowing which tool to pick for which problem at which time. It's all about choosing the right tool to deliver the most business value. That's the secret. So, the toolkit is officially yours. The only question left is, which one of these tools are you going to master first to make a real difference on your next project? Thanks so much for joining this Oasis&Brooks Ltd training session.